Hey guys, it's Rachel with Bee Hill Dog Training, and we are going to be taking a look at Storm today. And this cute little girl came in at only 4 months old, and despite being about the most adorable little puppy you ever did see, she's actually here for aggression problems. So I'm going to show you a little clip of what it looked like when she first arrived, because for a 4-month-old, what we're seeing in her is pretty serious and needs to be addressed very quickly, especially because she is going to top out at about 130 pounds as an adult. So that's a little backstory on her. And what we're going to talk about today is the reactivity and aggression issues she had coming in, and look at a video of some counter conditioning that we did and teaching her how to make better choices. So take a look at her intake here, and then we're going to look at several days later when we started that counter conditioning process. Yeah, suddenly a lot less cute, right? So again, as a reminder, only 4 months old, so it is just absolutely crucial that we get on top of this and stop this behavior, because this is going to become a dog that even her owners will not be able to handle. So what I want to talk about here initially is her very first session with me. That behavior was corrected immediately right off the bat. And so that was, remote collar put on, correct all the lunging, because when I did work with her, she was lunging at me, she was attempting to bite me, she was muzzled when I did take over her leash and start working with her. Very first thing I did was stop that behavior so that I could have a dog that I could work with. And it's so important for people to understand how important that step is. There has to be a consequence for that behavior. I'm not going to treat and reward her out of that behavior. However, there is a component of treating and rewarding, and we are going to take a look at a training session that looks at that side of it. So what I'm talking about right now, though, is the importance of having that consequence in place first, stopping the behavior first. Then we move on to what's called counter conditioning. And counter conditioning is where we start making more positive associations with the dog and their triggers. And if you hear, because it's said all the time that if you correct a dog for aggression, you're going to make the dog more aggressive, or you're going to give the dog a negative association with people or whatever the triggers are. But the issue there is that that negative association already exists. You're not going to create a more negative association by correcting it. Instead, having a proper consequence in place is going to stop the behavior, let the dog know that that behavior is not going to fly. And so then we get to move on to this part of it. And this is the counter conditioning part. This is when we have a dog that we can work with. And this video was less than a week after her intake, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 days. So at this point, she and I had a pretty good working relationship, and you can see this here. She's working quite comfortably with me, but Sarah is now the stranger. And so Sarah is going to be putting pressure on Storm just by being in close proximity. So what I'm doing here is I'm having Sarah approach and back away, and it's really important to notice that she's being extremely neutral. She's not talking to Storm. She's not trying to win her over with affection. She's not getting in her face. She's just approaching and backing away. And what I'm doing is I'm clicking and offering a food reward for making good choices. Now, actually, what happened just there is she gave a low growl and she got a correction, and she probably couldn't even tell. But she got a quick correction on the remote saying, hey, that growl's not going to fly. Now, the fact that she growled rather than exploding like you saw in the video before, that's a big deal. So, and that's a big improvement, but it's still not okay. So we have to stop all of the nasty behaviors and only reward for good behaviors. So what am I rewarding for here? I'm rewarding for her making eye contact with me if she feels uncomfortable. I'm not requiring eye contact, but I am going to reward it. And I'm going to reward for her backing away. Now, I'm not asking her to back away, but she is offering that. She is backing away, and kind of, you can see she's tucking herself behind me because she is not sure. That is absolutely acceptable and okay. And what some people would say is they'd see this clip and go, oh my gosh, you just corrected that dog and now she's afraid of Sarah and that's why she's tucking herself behind you. No, she was already afraid of Sarah, and when growling was taken off the table and not an option for her, she decided, well, I'm going to retreat. Do I want her retreating, and do I want her being fearful and removing herself from the situation? Of course not. I want her to be comfortable. But I have to reward this as a much better option than the lunging, barking, growling nonsense that she was doing. And that intake video you saw where she was barking, lunging at me, that was very quickly becoming her normal whenever she saw strangers. So again, just watch a couple of these repetitions. You can even see there she didn't move away at all. So basically what we're doing is through repetition, Storm is seeing that all that crap that she was pulling before, all of that barking and losing it, that's not what was actually removing the threat. She didn't know that there was no threat. You know, in her mind, hey, when I bark and cause a scene, the threat leaves. What she doesn't know is that threat's going to leave anyway. Sarah's not a threat. So all of this is to teach her, again, the behaviors that aren't going to fly, but then to show her that just because somebody approaches does not mean that they are a threat. Now, another very important part of this when you're dealing with dogs who have problems with stranger danger, they're uncomfortable around other people, huge important thing is you as the owner or the trainer or the handler advocating for that dog's space. So being her trainer, I'm not going to allow people to come in and pet her and try to put a whole bunch of extra pressure on her. Now in this case, of course we're putting some pressure on her. This is a training session. What I'm talking about is if I had visitors over, or if I was walking her out in public and somebody came up and wanted to like baby talk her and lean in and try to pet her, I'm going to tell them, no, you can't pet my dog, no, leave her alone, no, she's not friendly, she's afraid, whatever you want to say, find a way to say no and stick with it, and don't allow people to pet your dog when your dog is uncomfortable with strangers. Forcing people on a dog who's uncomfortable with strangers is not going to make them comfortable. And oftentimes when you get the people who are kneeling down and baby talking and leaning in, that actually puts even more pressure on a dog. The best thing you can do is to have people come in with a nice neutral attitude and just be present and teach the dog how to exist calmly when other people are present, but not trying to reach and pet them. So advocate for their space. Make sure you speak up. Make sure you don't allow people trying to, reach and pet your dog. So what we have changed to here is Sarah is now the one providing the treats, and she's just tossing them. So again, the sound in the video is turned off, but I'm clicking anytime she allows Sarah close and doesn't make a bad choice. I'm not necessarily giving her a command right now. I'm not telling her to sit. Again, I'm not telling her to tuck herself behind me. I am just allowing her to exist calmly and rewarding her for that. And now I've got the treat coming from Sarah's hand. So we just do lots of repetitions of this. Sarah is not trying to be her friend. Sarah's not trying to win her over. Sarah is just trying to provide a reward for her making a good choice. So again, we're talking very, very neutral energy going on here. And when you're talking nervous dogs, aggressive dogs, like the neutral energy is huge. And so here we're not even working Storm anymore. Storm is just hanging out in a down while Sarah and I chat. And so this is what it's about. It's about taking the energy away from the dog and having her feel comfortable just hanging out. So just a couple pointers to wrap up with here. When you're talking counter conditioning and creating a positive association with something that the dog actually has a negative association with, remember the dog already has the negative association there. So if they are exhibiting unwanted behaviors, it is absolutely acceptable to correct those behaviors. Not only is it acceptable, it's necessary to correct those behaviors first, and then when the dog is making better choices and in a better headspace, then we start the actual counter conditioning process where we are clicking and rewarding for making good choices first. Don't be afraid to have that consequence first. It is crucial. And here's proof right here that it all works. The very next time Sarah came out and worked with Storm, she took her out on a walk and did some leash skills, and Storm was willing to work with her, walked on a nice soft leash. It works, guys. It really does.